Today's vlog I decided to do because I've been reading a few comments lately on social media from people still trying to publish their first book and getting an agent or a publisher and talking about rejections. So I thought it might be of some help to hear someone else's publishing story to getting their first book published. My first book was published probably about 12 years ago now, and it's called Drama Queens with Love Scenes. Now, this is the process I went through. I originally, when I was writing the book, which then the working title was Staging Life, my assessor hated the original first chapter. In the first draft, Drama Queens with Love Scenes takes place in the afterlife, in the theatre district of the afterlife, where two friends have found themselves, they can't remember much at all of how they died, and they also suspect that they may have been lovers towards the end of their life, but they're not sure. So my original first chapter showed their death, and it was kind of a fantasy death because one of them had an uncle who they visited who built this pretend space rocket, and to humour him, Alan and his friend Warwick went inside the space rocket, it fell over and they died. And then the second chapter was them arriving in the afterlife. And then my assessor said two things. First off, you shouldn't mix real life with fantasy when this is such a fantasy book. So she made me ditch that first chapter and then say, why not make it a mystery how they died? That they can't really remember, which is where the amnesia idea came from. And thus creating a much more interesting novel that while Alan tries to recall how they died throughout the novel, and bits of the mystery come back to him. Now, secondly, I got many rejections before I got an offer. But when they sent me the contract, it kind of looked dodgy. First off, I wasn't allowed to write anything else unless I had their permission, this publisher's permission, so that looked a bit weird. So I went and got this contract looked at by a lawyer. She also noticed that the first clause that said I got 40% royalties on any audiobooks or translations, which was much more than I was getting for sales of the book. She said, no. That 40% is 40% percentage of the percentage of the royalties you would get on your book sales. Now, when I finally did get a publisher interested and the editor was about to start work on it, I got this nasty email from the editor-in-chief of that publishing house saying, "You call this an erotic novel? If you don't spice this up, it will never see the light of day." And of course, this is my first publishing contract, and suddenly I'm getting this pushback from the editor-in-chief about a genre which the book didn't even claim to be. It's a fantasy about two friends in the theatre district in the afterlife. Anyway, I emailed him and sort of said, I don't quite understand how you got the idea. It was an erotic novel, so then we went ahead with working with the editor. Now, the initial rewrites took 3 months, because even though I had this book assessed, my editor, Mary Belk, taught me a hell of a lot more. Some chapters were combined for pace, and she taught me the importance of show, don't tell. Now, sadly, she passed away just before the book was released. But the weird thing is, when my next two books were released, her email account sent me spam. One time it was a LinkedIn invite, just the day before my second novel was released. And then it was just everyday spam that we used to get. that was passed on from her account when my third novel was released. I just sort of saw this from the heavens. She's wishing me good luck. With the original cover, this is the first edition of the book, I didn't realise I was asking too much, because this angel is actually a waiter, and he's leaning against a dining room chair, and I asked her to change it to a director's chair and to add wings and do all sorts of other things. I got a nasty email from the editor-in-chief saying, any ideas you've got for the cover, run by me first. Oops. But the other thing is, I had my first book out. I got myself to the US at great expense to be part of the Saints and Sinners Literary Festival. While I was there, a new staff member had reviewed the novels at my publishers, and they dropped me while I was at this festival promoting the book. Of course I was freaked out. Fortunately, the sequel was being taken up by another publisher, and I wrote to them quickly and said, are you interested in taking the first book? Thankfully they did. And the second publisher was Wild City Press. This still remains my favourite cover to that book, even though the original cover was fantastic. This was the cover they came up with, and it was done by a fabulous Australian artist named Adrian Nicholas. The next thing, I was writing the sequel already, and I didn't include the angel character Guy. But reviews started coming out, and everyone loved Guy. He was everyone's favourite character, so I had to quickly rethink my sequel to make sure he was an important part of that novel. Now, Wild City Press folded, so I lost my second publisher, but at the time I had something accepted by this new publisher called Nine Star Press, because the editor who worked with me on this edition was working for Nine Star Press and invited me over. Now, I've got to read you this email because, I already had a second book in the series, and I had written a third book in the series. And I just called these the Drama Queen series. And this is the email I had with my editor, because he was asking me what was the series called. And I said, look, Drama Queens is what I've been calling it, but if we can think of something better, Dead Folk series, Dead Thespian series, Dead Theatre Folk in Love series, only kidding on the above. I've been calling it the Drama Queens series, but as one reviewer pointed out, some readers don't connect to it, to the theatre. They're more likely to think drama queens are prissy gays. I'm rambling now as I have my morning coffee, yet this is what I wrote in the email. But as these are books that need to be found by theatrical gays, maybe we should rebrand the series title. Theatrical Gays in Heaven? No, that's too silly. I'll be at work in 40 minutes, so I'll have more time to ponder. If I don't get back to you in a few hours, Drama Queens it is. Gay actors in the afterlife? No. Or what about Actors and Angels series? It covers all bases. Thespians in the afterlife, so that gay guy in his theatrical society searching Amazon will get what these books are about from the series title and the individual titles. So we must add theatre to the Amazon meta tags. Yes, let's rebrand them Actors and Angels series. It will also hint that these books are magic realism. You've just seen my morning thought patterns play out in this email. I was going to delete the first paras, but I thought you'd enjoy seeing how I got to my conclusion. Now, something else now. Drama Queens with Love Scenes was released over a decade ago. And I learned over time that the idea of two friends in the theatre district of the afterlife wasn't a very commercial sell, and over the years, I've been careful with the novels I write to make sure they have some commercial value. But what's interesting now is that when I go to book fairs now, selling my books, and I just happen to say, point out different books and what the plot is, somehow now, over a decade later, when I say two friends who find themselves in the theatre district of the afterlife with no idea of how they died, actually sparks potential buyers' interest in a way it never did over the last 10 years, and I don't know why. The other thing I learned, there was one festival I was at selling my books where I had both these editions on sale, and what I strangely found is that younger readers prefer this cover, which surprised me because, I think the other ones are better. But look, that's how my first novel got published. So if you're hitting your head against a brick wall, wondering why you're not published, hey, it takes a long time. I had so many rejections before Drama Queens with Love Scenes was published. And as you saw, it's now with its third publisher. So hang in there. If you liked this video, please hit like and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.